Yesterday, Officer Darren Wilson gave his first exclusive interview to George Stephanopoulos over there at ABC News, and he was asked specifically whether Michael Brown's race had anything to do with what happened that fateful day.
And you're absolutely convinced, when you look through your heart and your mind, that if Michael Brown were white, this would have gone down in exactly the same way?
Yes.
No question.
No question.
No question. Kevin Jackson is the author of a new book called Race Pimping, the Multi-Trillion-Dollar Business of Liberalism. He's also the executive director of the Black Sphere, which can be found at blacksphere.net, theblacksphere.net, and he's also an African-American conservative from the St. Louis area. Kevin, good to have you today. Kevin Jackson, you there? All right, we'll try to connect with Kevin Jackson. Let me give you some more audio here of Darren Wilson speaking to George Stephanopoulos yesterday. George Stephanopoulos asked him if he had any remorse, if it would haunt him, what happened.
Everyone feels remorse when a life's lost. Like I told you before, I never wanted to take anybody's life. You know, that's not the good part of the job. That's the bad part of the job. So, yes, there is remorse.
But asked exactly what went down and why his conscience is clear?
I just did my job. I did what I was paid to do, and that was my job. I followed my training. The training took over. Training led me to what happened. I maintained the integrity of this investigation. That's it.
Meanwhile, Dr. Ben Carson. Ben Carson, you know, from
right.
Maryland. Well, originally from Michigan, but now he's from Maryland. Well, I guess now he lives in Florida, doesn't
right.
he? I guess it doesn't matter where he's from. African-American, many people are suggesting should run for president. He was asked on a radio show about how race relations are now that we've had our first African-American president in the person of Barack Obama after 6 years.
Well, you know, I actually believe that things were better before this president was elected. And I think that things have gotten worse because of his unusual emphasis.
His emphasis on race actually makes it worse. Kevin Jackson, I've already introduced him, so let's go right to him. We've got him now. How are things looking in St. Louis? And I'd love for you to respond to what you just heard.
Well, with respect to Dr. I think that was Ben Carson, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, well, look, he's not telling us anything we don't know there. Everybody knows race relations has gone in the toilet since Obama took over. And, in fact, when he did his first press conference over the Ferguson deal, he was talking about, you know, race relations have come a long way. Yeah, they had come a long way until he and Holder and the rest of his minions came along. But what I want to talk about is the clip you played about Stephanopoulos asking that cop the question. See, that's the problem with liberals in America, Larry, is that question doesn't even need to come up.
Yeah, well, forget about it. Listen to how he asked it. I want to play it again, Kevin.
And you're absolutely convinced, when you look through your heart and your mind, that if Michael Brown were white, this would have gone down in exactly the same way.
That tone, it's so incredulous to him.
It is. That's exactly the point. It's hard for him to believe that you're not looking through the optics of black and white on this.
Yeah.
No, Stephanopoulos, I'm looking through the optics of life and death, and they won't even acknowledge that. See, that is, to me, in terms of journalism, that is it's terrible journalism. It's terrible because all the onus is now on the cop as to what is your motivation. Well, what is his motivation? How about getting home to his family? Yeah. That's his motivation. How about the idea that this thug walked into that store, did that, came out, attacked me, and you want to question me? And all the evidence points to this. That is what's so sick, and that's why I call it racism.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And Brian, by the way, I just want to add to this. Not only do I want to get home to my wife and kids, he may be thinking, but also I want to keep him from running into this neighborhood and breaking into someone else's home or breaking into another store. That's what cops do. Yeah. He's in the neighborhood. He's protecting the neighborhood.
But now the president, he condemned the violence in Ferguson, but he then went on to say, look, this is sort of understandable because there are many minorities who believe that, the police don't enforce the law equally. And he said this is an experience rooted in reality.
Yeah, let me tell you what's rooted in reality. Everybody in America has, at some point, has problems with cops. White people, Puerto Ricans, everybody. That's not the point. The cops don't do their job right the same way a doctor doesn't, a mechanic doesn't, or whatever. And it isn't limited to black people. Black people are committing outrageous acts of crime. And in fact, the sad statistic, and people don't want to admit this, the most dangerous person on the planet, statistically, is a young black male. So this guy, none of this, all this statistical crap that I go against when I'm talking to Mark Lamont Hill and all these other leftist buffoons is out the door. You need to stop making excuses for people who are doing bad things. These are not bad kids. They're bad people in bad situations, but they've been put in bad situations by idiotic liberals, people who are apologists, enablers, who want to tell these black kids, it's okay, you don't have a daddy, go rob a store. Well, everybody involved, Sharpton, hold on a second. Sharpton made the comment when he robbed that store. That wasn't really a rob. That he said shoplifting or whatever. He tried to minimize what this guy did. Now, let me ask you this. What about these real victims, the people whose stores are getting burned down and looted? Yeah. Anybody, I dare any liberal to tell me this has risen to that level.
But the president almost gives them a pass, saying, I condemn the violence, but it's understandable.
He does. That's what he does. Instead of coming out and saying, you know what, they follow the rule of law, this is the way it is, this is what this kid did, we're sad about his death, but what he did led to his death, we're going to move on and we're going to enforce the laws. And the sad part is these people in Ferguson watched on TV as a bunch of opportunists, profiteers, thugs kicked in their shop doors and stole everything, took their livelihoods away from them, and everybody sat and watched. And a bunch of apologists come on TV and go, oh, well, it's a shame, man. This is about Michael Brown. Hands up. Hands up, nothing.
Wow.
Enough of this nonsense.
Kevin Jackson, Kevin, I want you to preach for the next hour here, but I want to move on. And his book is Race Pimping, by the way. Check it out at theblacksphere.net. Let me ask you, Kevin, since you were there in St. Louis, how are things today? We've had a second day of violence, more cars overturned. Do things seem a little calmer? And are voices like yours, more sober voices, starting to be heard?
The things calm down during the day, and then at night these stupid hooligans get out again. To me, I think that it's been the lack of response of Governor Jay Nixon to really get enough National Guard troops out, and honestly, to just go thumping heads, because that's what they should be doing. The reason they're not is they don't want the optics, as they call it, to look bad. As far as my voice, yeah, so I'm on, I was, the night that it broke out, I had my entire family over there because my kids wanted to go check it out and everything. And but it got far too dangerous, and I was doing hits on CNN and Fox, and they got canceled because of all of the stuff that was going on. But in terms of is it back? It's not going to be back to normal for a while. What I can tell you is I had a group of businessmen who were going to be looking at doing some things to help Ferguson, guys in the St. Louis area. Man, they were sending me messages going, Kev, come on, what are we going to do here? When we have this type of lawlessness, which, by the way, comes from the top, guys. Yeah. Because everybody's looking at how Barack Obama handles his own scandals, as they say. So, they're looking at that and saying, man, I'm going to get mine at the bottom level. What do I anticipate tonight? Probably going to do a little bit more of the same. They're going to do it under the cover of darkness. Right now, the situation on the ground is these kids are daring the cops to do something to them in their faces. They're daring them. I dare you to do something.
That's a volatile situation. Yeah. Kevin Jackson, we got to leave it there. Again, the book, Race Pimping, the multi-trillion-dollar business of liberalism. You heard him, and now you know why we like him. The website is theblacksphere.net. Thanks, Kevin. Stay safe and happy Thanksgiving.